today we'll start plant physiology. In plant physiology, we'll start the chapter number 13, that is photosynthesis in higher plants. Now, what is photosynthesis? We have already done in previous classes. Photo means light and synthesis means to make something. Now, in presence of sunlight, that is photo, synthesis of glucose. That means this photosynthesis is a physiochemical process in which the raw materials are carbon dioxide, which is obtained from the atmosphere, then H2O, which is obtained from the soil, and in presence of sunlight and chlorophyll, which is already present in green plants, the product will be glucose, that is sugar, then CO2, oxygen. This oxygen is required for almost all the living beings for their survival, because oxygen is only taken in the form of respiration, which is the byproduct of this process, that is photosynthesis. Now, for the food material also, all the living plants, living beings depend on the green plants directly or indirectly. So in this way we can see that this process, that phenomena of photosynthesis, is necessary for the survival of the living world. Now, to explain this photosynthesis, different experiments have been done at different time. Joseph Priestley in 1770 had explained about that oxygen is evolved in the process of photosynthesis, and he had already discovered oxygen in 1774. He done a series of experiments, and he saw that when burning candle is kept in a bell jar, and after some time it will extinguish, or a live mouse is kept in that bell jar which is already airtight, then the mouse will also die. Now, after then he saw that when a small twig of plant is placed in that bell jar and mouse was kept there, then the mouse was alive. The burning candle was also not extinguished. Then he came to know that something was evolved in the plant, from the plant in that bell jar, which was responsible for the survival of the mouse as well as burning of the candle, and that was oxygen gas. And in this way he had concluded that oxygen was evolved in the process of photosynthesis. Then John House in 1930, and he had done a lot of experiment, and he had concluded that sunlight is essential for the process of the photosynthesis. Then Julius von Sachs in 1854 have given the conclusion that in this process the glucose is produced. Then T.W. Engelmann, his working was during the year, that is 1843 to 1909. He done a lot of experiment, and he came to the conclusion that light has different spectrum with different wavelength of light. Out of that, red and blue light was the most favorable for the process of photosynthesis. Then Cornus von Neil in his working time was about 1897 to 1985. He had concluded that this experiment is light dependent, and as well as in this process carbon dioxide is reduced to the sugar molecule, that is C6H12O6, and oxygen is released in this process. For that, for his experiment, he has used the radioisotopes of the CO2 and other things, so that he came to know the conclusion that CO2 is reduced into the glucose as well as oxygen is released. So a lot of experiments have been done time to time. These are some of them. Then we have already discussed, this is the formula for the photosynthesis, that is C6CO2 12H2O. In presence of sunlight and chlorophyll, the product is glucose, that is C6H12O6, 6 molecule of H2 and 6 molecule of oxygen. Now this oxygen is coming out from splitting of water, that we'll discuss during the light reaction. Now, site of photosynthesis. Where does this photosynthesis takes place? The site of photosynthesis is the leaf. Now inside the leaf, chloroplast is there, and the chloroplast is the exact site of photosynthesis. Now chloroplast has the parts, different parts in which different types of reactions takes place. That we'll discuss through the diagram. Now here two parts are there mainly, that is stroma, the fluid filled inside the chloroplast, and that stroma is the place or site for the dark reaction of the photosynthesis, whereas grana is the place or the site for the light reaction. The product of the light reaction is NADPH as well as ATP, which becomes the raw material for the doing the experiments of light reaction, and in this way the process of photosynthesis takes place. Now when we'll see the light spectrum, the Vibgyor, that is different colors are there, and out of this the red as well as blue light is the most favorable for the process of photosynthesis. Light of different different wavelength are there that can be absorbed by the chlorophyll to perform the activity of photosynthesis, and that is known as the PAR radiation or photosynthetically active radiation. Now pigment systems. There are different types of pigments present in the leaf, and that can be separated by the process of paper chromatography. The main pigments are chlorophyll A, which is bright or blue-green in color, which is known as the main reaction center or chief pigment, whereas chlorophyll B is yellow-green, xanthophyll is yellow in color, and carotenoid is yellow-orange. These three are the accessory pigments which harvest the light from the sun, and that is passed to the chlorophyll A, the chief pigment. That's why it is known as accessory pigment. It also protects chlorophyll A from the process of photo-oxidation. Now there are two pigment system. Pigment system 1, that is also known as P700, and other is pigment system 2, that is also known as P680. Now PS1 or P700, that reaction center has the capacity, it will absorb the light maximum at 700 nm. That's why it is known as P700, whereas PS2 is absorbing the light maximum at the nm, that is 680 nm, and that's why it is known as PS2 or P680. These two reaction centers will help in the process of photosynthesis by harvesting the light, sunlight, and converting them into the chemical energy. So sunlight or solar energy is transformed into the chemical energy, and that is known as the physiochemical process, that is photosynthesis.
The process of photosynthesis occurs in all the green plants, and in which the autotrophic organisms use the light energy to make sugar as well as oxygen gas is released in this process. Now it occurs in plants, algae, some of the prokaryotes also participate in this, and this phenomena is for storing energy. The solar energy is converted, light energy is converted into the chemical energy in the form of carbohydrate, and that is used by the other organism, that is which are not green in color, that is heterotrophs, and they directly or indirectly depend upon this process of photosynthesis for their food requirement as well as oxygen requirement for their respiration. This is the formula of this photosynthesis, that is C6CO2 plus 6H2O, which in presence of light energy C6H12O6, that is glucose, and 6O2, that oxygen is released, and these all phenomena occurs in the leaf. This process of photosynthesis occurs in two stages, and two stages are one which is depend upon the light, that is known as light reaction, and other which is independent of light, that's why it is known as dark reaction. That we will study in detail now. For the process of photosynthesis, the plant utilize carbon dioxide which is taken from atmosphere, and through the stomata it is entering inside the cell, and this CO2 is the raw material for the process of photosynthesis. Now water is absorbed through the roots and carried through the stem to rest of the plant. So water and carbon dioxide is the raw material. Now these two things will combine in the leaf for that to make sugar. For that the chlorophyll will help in this process which is present in the leaf, and light energy is obtained from the sun. So, in this way, in presence of light energy as sunlight as well as the water, carbon dioxide, and with the help of this chlorophyll, the process of photosynthesis occurs. The product is the sugar molecule as well as oxygen, which this oxygen is released in the atmosphere, which is utilized by different organisms as well as other purposes. And excess sugar is stored as starch in the root and other parts of the body. This photosynthesis, the process that we are knowing, that it occurs in presence of sunlight, in which it convert it into energy is convert into the ATP, that is adenosine triphosphate. All of these are due to the help of this chlorophyll. So, only the green plants having chlorophyll can perform the process of photosynthesis. That is why they are also known as autotrophs. The reaction can be written as 6CO2 plus 12H2O in presence of sunlight and chlorophyll. The sugar molecule, that is C6H12O6, and 6 molecules of oxygen as well as 6 molecules of H2O is released in this process. Now, we will study about the different method of photosynthesis, different types of reaction of photosynthesis. This slide is showing the experiment which was done by Priestley to show that in this bottle, this is the bell jar in which this mouse is there, which is live, and this candle is burning. After some time, the mouse will die as well as the candle will also extinguish. Now, when a green plant is plotted in this bell jar, which is already airtight, then at that time the mouse will be alive and the candle will not extinguish, that will be still burning. That proves that this green plant in the process of photosynthesis released the oxygen, which is utilized by this candle as well as the mouse, and they are still alive as well as burning. So, this experiment is proving that in this process of photosynthesis, oxygen gas is released. The part of the plant which participate in the process or help in the process of photosynthesis is leaf. This leaf has the chloroplast, and these chloroplasts having such a structure. This is the structure of the chloroplast, and in this chloroplast it consists of double membrane, outer membrane and inner membrane. These are the grana. This is the lamellae, stroma lamellae or thylakoid lamellae, and this portion, that liquid like structure, this one is known as stroma. The stroma, this light reaction occurs in this grana, and this one, the stroma, for the dark reaction, that is Kelvin cycle. And in this process, ATP, NADPH, ADP, how they are synthesizing, all this will study in detail. This is the ultra structure of this chloroplast, and that is both the membranes in which the between intermediate space is there. Then this is the grana, chloroplast, DNA, then stroma. This is the lumen of the thylakoid, and this is lamellae, and the single one is thylakoid. Collectively it is known as grana. This is the structure of chlorophyll. Photosynthesis includes two type of reactions, dark reaction as well as light reaction. Light reaction means the reactions which require sunlight, and in presence of sunlight only it occurs, and the site for this light reaction is the grana that we had already discussed. Then in this process the products are ATP or NADPH, which will become the raw material for the Kelvin cycle, used in the Kelvin cycle, that is dark reaction. Now, the dark reaction which occurs without sunlight and in absence of sunlight, and the site for this is this stroma, which is present inside the chloroplast, and the product of this light reaction, that is ATP and NADPH, will use in this process in the stroma for the process of this dark reaction. This dark reaction occurs in the cyclic form, and it was first discovered and explained by Melvin Kelvin. That is why it is also known as Kelvin cycle. In this, PgAl can be produced, and which will later on will converted into glucose or the sugar molecule. Now we will discuss about the which light spectrum is favoring the process of photosynthesis. There are different types of chlorophyll which help in the process of photosynthesis, that is chlorophyll A, which is the main chlorophyll, and chlorophyll B, carotenoid, xanthophyll, all are the accessory pigments which help the chlorophyll A. They help in harvesting the light from the sun, and they help in this process. Now that we have already discussed. Now the light, the NM, the wavelength of the light, the NM, that is 400 to 700, is favorable for this process of photosynthesis, which is also known as PAR radiation, that is photosynthetically active radiation. Although the blue color in the light spectrum, the blue color and the red color is most favorable for the process of photosynthesis. This is showing the incident light, that is the VIBGYOR, different colors, and this is reflected light. Now this is the chlorophyll B, which is maximum absorbed at this NM wavelength, and this is chlorophyll A, which is maximum it is absorbed at this wavelength. So this is showing this in this figure.